Hello, this is Paul Gilbert, and welcome to my guitar instructional DVD. Today, we're going to go over the songs from my all-guitar instrumental album, Get Out of My Yard. I'm going to try to find the most interesting parts, the coolest riffs, the most rock and roll ingredients that I use to make this record, and break them down and show them to you so you can insert them in your own playing and make your own rock and roll guitar. So let's have a good time, tune in, plug in, get ready to rock out, and get ready to get out of my yard. Thank you very much. When I was planning the Get Out of My Yard guitar solo, I knew I had to do something out of the ordinary to catch people's attention and let them know that I could still play fast, terrifying shred guitar. So the idea I had was to put 3 E strings on a guitar neck, just 3 strings, and the reason I did this is it makes arpeggios really easy to play. And to me, the whole secret of playing fast is to make it easy. So, for example, with those 3 E strings, I could do a real simple pull-off. Just an E minor or E major triad. And then do that on each string, same frets. So suddenly you have 3 octaves of E major. And you can play it super fast, it's just that, super easy kind of pull off, and that becomes something pretty terrifying with those 3 strings. The next thing you can do, of course, is on the higher frets, you could stretch. And these are all minor triads, which is a fairly easy shape for the hand. And you can do all your normal hammer-on pull-off licks. And the nice thing is it's all the same frets. You don't have to shift positions, and you can just play E minor all day and make crazy licks that way. But I wanted to go beyond playing in one key, and the problem is a lot of the stuff in the middle is too far for me to stretch and get those kind of arpeggios that I wanted to. So that's where I had the idea of having a human capo. So my friend Mike's going to come in and be the capo for me. And for Get Out of My Yard, I began in C, which is right there, and I just did a C minor triad. And again, I'm using those kind of simple pull-offs, and I'm just doing 1 downstroke with my right hand for each string, so it's all downstrokes. You got that. Yeah. So back to the left hand. After that, I just stretched up a fret. Then the capo shifts down. I stay the same. shifts down again. I go down here. And the capo shifts down again. Then there's a big shift way up here. Another shift. Then we have a quicker shift with diminished. Where's my fingers go? And shift. And shift one more time. And the very last shift. Then I do a pull off. This is an octave, and I actually bend the string up with my right hand, or sorry, my left hand. And then just release and hit a big E. So that is the secret of the Get Out of My Yard solo, and now with your own human capo, you can do it at home. Rock and roll! I wanted to make Hurry Up kind of an exercise in big, heavy eighth notes. By eighth notes, I just mean something about this tempo. And usually that's not fast enough to be really terrifying, rip your head off kind of metal. But I thought if I do a cool melody within it and mute the strings and make it sound big and cool, then it'll work. So this is the melody I came up with. And that was basically it. It's based on very simple chords, based on E major. And I did this melody there. Then an A chord. I did this melody there. Then a C minor, C sharp minor. And I did the same melody up in that key. Back to the A. And then just a scale down. E major scale. So all together. And you can play it politely like that, or you can add some grit and muting and lots of downstrokes. There, it comes to life when you do that. So the next thing I did that I like in this song with eighth notes is I put together a melody that sounds like this. That was all written inspired by the bass part. The bass part was really simple. It was just an E major scale going down. But the trick to make it interesting was to put an unusual number of notes or an unusual rhythm on each one. So for example, instead of just going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, might be your normal rock song. But instead, I did, let me see if I can remember. I did 4 notes, then 3. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 1. I think that was it. And, I did it really at random. I actually wrote the numbers down like math. And then just played it to the bass part to a click track, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 1, something like that, and then tried to compose a guitar melody that would go with it. So each part, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, I went. You can hear how I outlined the chords, and then this would be the that goes with that, and then that goes with that note. Let's see. Yeah. That kind of sound. So I just went all the way down. I'll play it slow for you once. There I use the open B string to make the guitar sound more resonant. And that's the whole thing. Then you put your distortion on and play it for real. This is the castle, the Dragon's Lair Castle in Hollywood, and this was the inspiration for the song title, The Curse of Castle Dragon. And in this song we're going to use lots of harmonic minor scales, fast picking, other heavy things in arpeggios. So I hope you enjoy learning these riffs from The Curse of Castle Dragon. Rock and roll! The Curse of Castle Dragon. I want to show you some of the main parts, and the first part is an A minor 9 arpeggio, followed by 3 power chords. But I play the notes separately. It would be D, E, and F. So if you connect that, then I hit the high F with my pinky and do a little pull off and a scale natural minor down. Let me put that in rhythmic context so it makes sense to your ears, because that's the most important thing, is your ears. And right there, I'm going to outline a minor 7 flat 5 chord. I had never heard of a minor 7 flat 5 chord before I went to school, but they taught me one and I ended up loving them. In context, they sound great, so I want to outline that with sort of this broken arpeggio. You can hear how that outlines that sound. So all together, and then just a straight natural minor scale down in octaves. You know this one.
but I'm picking it and starting on a lower octave each time. Connecting it all together. And then I add 6 more notes. It's just the next step up in harmonic minor. Super slow. Then the open string, and it starts all over again. Let's see, after that, I basically repeat it, but I change the ending fast lick to an ascending lick. Same notes, just reverse order, starting on the low note A. Then I go down to the, what is that, a G sharp? And do some more harmonic minor, very slowly. Then we have some arpeggios, string skipping arpeggios. This one is sort of a D minor. D minor 9, it's got a 4th thrown in there too. That's the basic shape. Same exact thing down here in 5th position in A minor. Isn't it nice when licks repeat themselves? You only have half as much to learn. This time I do the same kind of pattern in F, but in order to make it sound good within the same key, I change the notes to make it sound like F Lydian. It's Lydian because it's got that sharp 4, which is so nice and sharp 4 sounding. And then I go a big payoff with a bending note, and because the bending note's kind of far away from here, I slide up to it to make it dramatic and also technically easier. A big G chord, and then we have some descending 4s. They're called descending 4s because they're 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're going down. And they're all in one string, which makes it very easy to pick because your pick only has to stay on the one string. Then we have a little melody, E, D, C, and B. And the final bit, I really like this lick, goes like this. So it's sort of a 2-note per string speed lick. You know, you've got 2 notes on each string, and I'm doing alternate picking. But then I end it by playing 1, 2, 3, 4 notes on a single F. So it's, and obviously muting a lot with this hand in order to keep the strings and the sound nice and tight and staccato. That is the main beef of The Curse of Castle Dragon. probably the craziest part of the song Radiator is this arpeggio section where I try to outline the chords in the progression. And let me just go ahead and show you the arpeggios that I use. The first one is like a C major sixth arpeggio. The next one is sort of an E sus. Slower. Well, in a lot of these I'm reaching up and getting a higher note, in this case a B, to make the arpeggio even wider. And then I think the next one was like a F sharp 7. I've got one of those here. This one also has the sus within the arpeggio. And I'm even going to reach up on the high E string and get the notes there too. And the last ones are really crazy, so I play them relatively slow in real life. Very F Lydian sound. String skipping, there's no B string in there. Then the next one is sort of an E augmented. How's that going to sound? Again, string skipping, and then to some kind of a B major, I'm going to use that kind of D chord shape. I do this crazy thing with my first finger. I actually play the first finger for those 3 notes. Normally this would be easier, but I do it so I can be in position for the end of that. This would be like a major sus arpeggio. And that's that whole thing. I started playing guitar when I was a kid, so long before I could drive or was old enough to drive, I was playing guitar and I was playing in rock bands. And there was always the issue of how to get to rehearsal. And since I couldn't drive myself, I would depend on the other band members or my parents or friends of the band members or someone to pick me up and take me to rehearsal. And one day, the friend of the singer, I don't even remember his name, but he picked me up and he'd been drinking a lot of beer, and we ended up going straight through a telephone pole, which inspired this song. And this song is in E. The main riff goes like this. Kind of major pentatonic sounding. And I'm just putting a rhythm in there with some slides. Trying to dress it up with little, not just going to the notes, but making little stylistic things. You could hear at the end I went a downward slide. And that makes it a lot cooler and gives it a cool groove. So that's basically the intro. The main part I want to show you about this is this is almost a picking exercise. So with the right hand, I'm doing alternate picking. And I'm just doing an E natural minor scale, 3 notes per string. And the thing that I like about this is that I worked out an ending for it. And sometimes the trickiest part of fast picking is how to begin and how to end. So in this particular phrase, I ended it like this. Very staccato. So when I play like that, I'm not even muting with my hand here. I'm actually muting with the pick. So I'm like hitting the string and then stopping it with the pick. I really like that sound. It sounds really controlled, like you meant to do it. Little bend, and then little phrase. So it has a fast scale, but it also has some cool phrasing, vibrato, and things with a lot of control and staccato sounds. At the very end, I do this lick, like a 2-note per string pull off, and I really like this part where I go a little pull off there. And then I just repeat it as fast as I can. Pick 2 notes. The rest is hammer on and pull off. So it's a big flurry of notes, but really I'm only picking 2. You can watch my hand go like ba-da, 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 with a little 2-note picking thing. And that is the exciting parts of Straight Through the Telephone Pole. Marine Layer is a simple song. It's got chords like C sus, regular old cowboy C. I call that cowboy C because all the cowboys play that one. And it's got cowboy D7, cowboy G7. But somehow I managed to make it not sound like a cowboy song. I think the sus probably does the trick. And I'm not strumming it like a cowboy, I'm playing the notes individually, and I'm hardly ever stopping, and that's sort of the trick of this song, is to keep it very consistently picked. And I think if I have any technique that's unique to my playing for this, it's that I almost always play the bass note with a downstroke, and all the other notes tend to be up. So it's like down up here and then up, 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 you know, tons of upstrokes. So a lot of that going on with upstrokes. I don't know why I do that, but it seems to work. And what else do we have in this song? In this song, I tried to play the most perfect, beautiful C major scale. Because I'm known for playing fast scales, I thought it would be interesting to play a really slow one, and instead of concentrating on the speed of it, sort of concentrate on the perfectness and beauty of it. There we go. Marine Layer. This is the 12-string bass guitar, which inspired the song 12-12. Pretty much I wrote the whole thing on this instrument. It's tuned just like a regular bass, but it has 3 strings for each note. It makes it sound quite big, and you end up having to play very, very hard to get the notes out right. So I use a lot of harmonics. And then just try to get them with my pinky with a C in the bass. And some open strings. And that's pretty much the main part. The tricky part that I want to show you is the middle section, where I do these chords that are almost impossible because I'm hitting these really high notes. But it's worth it because I love the chords. The first one is sort of an A minor chord, but I put E in the bass. Then just a regular old E minor. Then a B major. This is sort of a diminished. Then an E sus. And E major. All together. The guitar for 12-12 is mostly just playing in the key of E minor. I'm doing a lot of improvising, a lot of pentatonic bends, that kind of thing. Very fun for any guitar player to spend lots of time in E pentatonic with all those cool bending notes. So I had a good time doing that, but then the middle section came. That's the part where the bass goes up way high, and I've got to start playing over some chord changes, which as a rock player is an uncomfortable situation, but I'm working on it. I did my best. And in this case, the chords we've got are A minor with E in the bass. Then we've got E minor, regular old E minor. B major. E is always in the bass. And we've got some diminished chords, F sharp. And we've got an E sus and an E. So I'm trying to outline those, maybe initially just by playing the chords. So that'll give you a nice melody, and I'm just sort of muting and playing staccato and trying to get a good groove with it. Later on, if possible, I try to start doing more screaming notes and maybe some faster arpeggios to outline those chords. So for the A minor, I might do something like this. And E minor. For the B, maybe the same kind of shape. Diminished, I like the string skipping lick. And then for E sus, I'd probably just play an E major, string skipping lick like that. Three notes on this string, 3 notes on this string, and a low E. So there's some chord changes for you, and then back to just the good old E minor. Rusty Old Boat uses one of my favorite scales, as you know, E minor pentatonic, but instead of just playing it in the usual spot, I found the notes for E minor pentatonic all over the place. So, for example, that whole line uses notes from E minor pentatonic. and the line up. That's all E minor pentatonic as well. So it's just different ways of using that pentatonic sound to get phrases. And I'm trying to get lots of little kind of funky. You can hear that almost like a drum. And I'm just muting out the strings with my left hand and covering them so they won't ring. And then with my right hand, doing that little shuffle groove like a drummer. That'll make your playing funky. Let's see, after that, I go to sort of an A7 chord. Although I'm playing power chords there, I want an A7 sound. So I do the craziest Mixolydian scale I can think of. I'm just sort of using this 3-note per string scale and trying to do lots of soloing within that. Any patterns that I have, they're different every time. And I'll show you some of those patterns when we get to the hammer-on pull-up at the end, but I just wanted to give you the general scale and that I go nuts inside it. And the same thing up a whole step in B, but this time I'm playing the scale from the low end. And again, I'm trying to go as nuts as I can with any patterns that work. And the last thing I have is a big stretch in, this would be like a D7 sound. And doing hammer-ons and pull-offs. Making that note rise up. And the big stretch at the end. And if possible, I'm going to try to bend it up at the end. Because anytime you bend, it's cool. And between these notes, I'm trying to get a clear enough sound where it's not so distorted and hissy that I can actually stop in the middle. You have little spaces as opposed to, of course I can sustain all the way through it. But if possible, for funky, it's good to stop. Some kind of funky chord. That's an E flat. I have to think about this one. Dominant, it's got a 13 and a 9. So those are some of the cool parts. I'm going to show you one more lick because I love it so much. This is something I do in the solo. It's an arpeggio, D major, in octaves, using pull-ups. A lot of shifting with the left hand, but it's a really nice smooth sound, and in context, it's something like this. I am going to use my 1976 pearl-covered Ibanez Flying V to demonstrate the echo song today. The echo song is using the echo, the digital delay. And what it does is I'm just playing eighth notes, very staccato eighth notes. And I set the delay so it actually puts a note in between each one. If you want to be technical about it, I would say it would be a dotted eighth. But we don't want to be technical, we just want to feel it. So if I'm going to play it at this tempo, I'm going to put the delay on about this speed. And so if I just play like this, it's going to come out at 16th notes. And so when I play this, and turn the delay on, I get 16th notes in kind of an interesting order. That's the beginning. And sometimes you can let those high ones open up a little bit. Some of the other patterns I did were a lot of octave patterns where I would play a simple melody like this one in C Lydian and just take it up an octave. So I'm starting with C, my second finger. So I'm going to put my second finger on the next higher C. Do the same melody, same fingering as well, which makes it easy to learn. You can see how those are the same shape. And find the next C, again using your second finger as a starting point. That way you can always use the same shape. With the delay. And then I just dropped the bass note down to a B. Down to an A. And slightly different for the G. So all together with the delay, this is really good practice for your technique because although you aren't playing incredibly fast, you have to play extremely accurately in time, or because the delay won't modify itself to change speed with you. You have to stay really consistent in your tempo and also in your staccato playing. I am a child of the 70s, so I'm very influenced by the guitar players that bent strings and did pentatonic licks. Had those big, huge 70s rock and roll guitar sounds. So I wanted to take those influences and put them into this song called The Full Tank, which has a lot of E minor pentatonic, as you can tell, one of my favorite scales. And I just tried to make big, huge chords and nothing too complicated, but I wanted to make everything sound as good as possible. I wanted to play the best sounding A chord that I could, and nice scratchy things, and big, huge, chunky. So make sure you shake those strings, get the biggest E chords you can. Play cool things in pentatonic with chunkas in between. My Teeth Are a Drum Set is a song in A. Today I'm going to play it on my old faithful PGM 300 that I got in the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere around there. I've beat on this guitar, done all sorts of things to it, and it's still going, and today I beat on it even more because my guitar is like a drum set as well as my teeth. The solo in this song is kind of an A dominant sus sound. I do this kind of arpeggio that has like the notes of a dominant chord, but I'm also using the suspended, the 4th or the 11th, whatever you want to call that note, that D note. And I try to find a good fingering for that. It's a very easy fingering because it's all this once you know the first 5 notes, which are those, 2 here, 3 here, then it's all the same after that. You just start on the octave higher. So this started on G. Let's find the G here. There's a G, same shape. Find the next G, which is here, same shape. So you only have to learn one shape, and you just keep taking it up. That's a really useful shape to improvise with. I like that one. And that's this kind of sound of that solo. I obviously use some major pentatonic as well. Everything I can do to get that A sus chord kind of solo. Using Mixolydian scales, playing through them quickly, and that hopefully will give you some of the sound. That hopefully will give you some of the sound of My Teeth, our drum set. I love rock and roll music and heavy metal and all those things, but I also love classical music. So I chose to do a Haydn symphony all on guitar. I replaced all the bassoons and the cellos and the oboes and the clarinets and the flutes and whatever else is in there. And I played them all with guitar. And the only thing that I still remember from it is the first violin part, which is kind of the featured part. And so I want to show you some of the cool things from that. One of the things is there's a lot of eighth notes. The main thing is eighth notes, but occasionally there's a 16th note thrown in. So that's like the eighth note. But then there'll be a little da-da-da-da in between. And that really requires a lot of accuracy and good technique from your right hand. So I really recommend that as an exercise. And also, I like that little melody. It's a nice classical kind of melody. Also, a lot of these phrases begin with your pinky on your left hand. So that's sort of a good training for your left hand as well. If you get stuck on it, just repeat one part over and over again until you get it right. You can play it very slow. That's the way to build these things up. So the main thing I want to show you besides that 8th note and 16th note picking idea is some of the arpeggios that happen in this song. Some really cool ones. Let me go right to the end where there's, starts with some descending fours. Something like that. The arpeggios in there are simple triad arpeggios, and they actually, it's quite possible that I could sweep pick them. That one, for example, is a pretty easy sweep shape. Doing 3 downstrokes with my pick hand, and then an up. But now that I've shown you that, that's not what I do. I actually prefer to do hammer-ons. For some reason, I can lock into the groove a little better with that kind of technique than I can with that one. That one, the notes are all right, but it's really hard for me to accent it the way I really want to. Somehow that, to me, feels more natural. That one's just a little bit unstable. Where that one, it's probably because it's similar to my rock and roll pentatonic kind of licks. It's just a wider stretch. Skipping the B string, playing 2 notes on the G, and 2 notes, I'll say it again for the noise, playing 2 notes on the G string, and playing 2 notes on the high E. So let's look at all these arpeggios that I do with that technique. Let's see, I'm going... There's the next one, is the C major triad. Then... that's C major. So what happens there? Then a G major. And the last one, I should probably sweep this one, but I don't. That's how crazy I am. Huge position shift, but I do it so I can keep the groove of my left hand going, doing that kind of technique, because the technique is making the groove in this case. So those are the arpeggios. I think it's a really nice way of getting those to be very smooth and very beautiful. Let's see if I can do them in order. There we go, there's some Haydn. 3 E's for Edward, of course, refers to the 3 E's on my acoustic guitar. And Edward, of course, refers to Edward Van Halen, one of my favorite guitar players in the universe. For this song, I wanted to take advantage of this tuning, of course. And like I said before, it's very good for arpeggios. And then the picking thing that happens later is a 3-note per string. So that's the basic lick. Same kind of rhythm and phrase, but with different stretches. This one's 2 whole step stretches sitting on the 5th fret. I think up to the 9th fret with a whole and a half. 2 whole steps on the 7th fret. Because these are octaves again, I'm using the same shape on each string. It's all the same notes. And the last one is 2 whole steps on the 5th fret. I have one up here on the 12th fret with a C bass note, and one on the 11th fret on the 7th fret, and then a diminished one with open strings. And then just freak out in B. And back to your rhythm. That is one extra chord. I hate that stretch, but you can do it if you have your guitar up really high. F sharp and A sharp. And I think that's mostly it. At the end, I just try to do some tapping along with the arpeggios. And put Edward in my heart and 3 strings in my hands, and there you have it. You kids, get out of my yard! This is a song called You Kids. I think every guitar instrumental album needs one punk rock song at least. So I tried to write one with some big chords. That's kind of the main riff. And just moving power chords around by sliding. Nice little fast picking lick there where I go. Try to get that kind of cello-y, nice little scratch on it. For the solo, I wanted to play 16th notes, and this tempo of the song is pretty quick. You know, it's going, let's see. So, you know, to play 16th notes, I have to do like a, you know, pretty fast lick. And the ones I came up with, this one is the first one. It's an E mixolydian scale. little slower. But the thing to make scales interesting is you don't always want to play them straight up and down. So I tried to do a pattern within it, which is something like this. I think when you hear it, you can definitely tell that I'm repeating that pattern. I'm not picking every note. There's a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs to make this go easier, or at least pull-offs. So in context, let me see, it's going like... Yeah. The next one has a lot of fast picking in it. The pattern is like this. Again, I'm staying within E mixolydian, but I'm doing it on two strings, the high B and E. I think that's it. Let me speed it up a little bit and see if it is. That's it. And at the end I pull off to the open B, which gives my left hand time to hit that big bent chord. So I worked that out beforehand. These were not improvised. That gets me right on the beat. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. The next one is straight tremolo picking, where I pick one note really fast. And I just slowly move the note up with my left hand. And the last one almost sounds like a sweep, but it isn't. It's a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs using the open B string. That kind of lick. Let's see how I'm playing this. Yeah, so let's see. I'll play it again real slow, borrowing with the pinky, then pulling off, and then doing one more B before coming back to that bar. So it's like real slow again so you can get it. At that slow tempo, it sounds kind of unusual rhythmically, but as you speed it up, it develops its own pulse, and then you can hear how to phrase it. So let's start speeding it up. And then I just took it up the neck chromatically. And then I had more fun just trying to get a cool noise out of my G string. And there's some punk rock for you. Thank you very much. All right, I want to talk to you about hammer-ons and pull-offs. Very useful, very cool technique, and I think there's many ways to build it, but I want to show you a very simple way, which is just to develop the basic hammer-on and pull-off technique with all of your fingers. The simplest one would be between your first finger and, for example, your second finger. Most people can do that because those fingers are strong. But then as you start to go out and maybe use your third finger, it gets a little bit weaker, but you've got to get it. You got to have it in time, or you can control the sound of the note so it's nice. And keep the tempo even. And then of course the pinky, the weakest finger, but you can get it. The next thing is to do those pull-offs, but this time using your second finger as sort of the anchor note. So let's do A with the second finger, and we'll do the pinky. And now let's try the two weakest fingers, the third and the fourth. We'll go between the B and the C. And if you can get a good tone out of those, you're really in good shape. So now that you've got those done, let's work on some slightly more complicated patterns that are going to be a little more musical and interesting sounding. This one sounds like this. It's got 6 notes. They sound like they're C-A-B, C-B-A. Obviously very good for strengthening those last 2 fingers. Let's add in 4 notes that introduce this. I want to start on the B string and play 3 notes. That's E, F sharp, and G. And I'm going to add an A note on the high E string and then do the lick that we just learned. So altogether, that's the lick. To make a little more out of it, I want to descend all the way down, back to the bottom, and without repeating that E note, start cycling the lick. So it'll sound like this very slowly. And then that E is where you start over again without repeating it. So let's do it a little quicker. I'm pausing in between so you can get the sound of that pattern in your ears and in your head. But then, like I keep saying, I don't want to repeat the E, and this time I'm going to cycle it without stopping. There we go. I'm going to add another sequence to this that I think is very important. This is 5 notes that descend. It's played with an upstroke, a down, 2 pull-offs, and another picked note on the bottom. So it would be up, down, pull off, and down. Up, down, down, like that, with some pull-offs in the middle. Up, down, down. Again, I'm putting a space so you can get it in your head. But in reality, I don't stop and I just cycle it over and over. So let's combine those 2 licks together. Let's see if we can do that. So that's a good way you can get a basic scale to have sort of a left-hand freak out. And just practice it a lot. Make sure you have your basic ones down. That'll build up strength, and then practice the other one slow, very even, with good tone. Use your ears to make sure the tone is the way you like it. And your fingers will follow. I want to talk to you about arpeggios. And in the world of guitar, many people use the sweep picking technique for arpeggios. And I've done it myself, but I really prefer a lot of other methods. So I want to introduce you to those, and we'll let the sweepers of the world take care of the sweeps. My favorite way of doing arpeggios is string skipping. There's a couple different ways to string skip. The most basic one I would want to show you would be this E minor triad. 2 notes on the E string, and then 2 notes on the G string, and then 1 note on the D string. I'm doing that with 3 downstrokes, and all the rest of the notes are pulled off. I like those pull-offs because they make the lick sound very smooth and natural. And that kind of shape allows me to do different phrases, hammer-ons and pull-offs. To me, that kind of phrasing is very natural and very musical and very useful in tempo. So experiment with using those in different tempos in your music. You know, if you're it's a cool way of throwing in arpeggios with almost more of a pentatonic style of phrasing. Another way of doing arpeggios is to take a short or small shape. For example, this shape. Very simple. I'm using the same frets, 7 and 10, on the low E and low A strings. And this happens to be all the notes in an E minor 7th arpeggio. It's got the root in the 3rd, it's got the 5th and the 7th. That's all you need. So let's take it up an octave and start it here. Same fingering shape, just an octave higher. And once again up an octave. So real slow. This is a really cool way of visualizing how to play an arpeggio. Because you have the same shape in 3 places. And all you have to do to be able to find those places is know where your octaves are. So I'm looking for the B here, here, and here. And you can even practice moving your first finger between those B notes. That way your hand gets used to the technique and your eye gets used to visualizing that position shift in order to make that arpeggio happen. Let me show you a couple more examples because this is a really good technique for even more complex 7th arpeggios. For example, how often do you play a C sharp minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio? Probably not very often, but that's because you don't know one, or at least I didn't until I learned this very simple shape. It's B and C sharp, then E and G. That's it. That's all you have to know. And then just put that in the octaves. Up an octave starting on B, up an octave starting on B. Same shape every time. Then just experiment with it to try to find hammer-on and pull-off sequences that allow you to go between the positions. by coincidence, this arpeggio to me sounds really good over an A7 chord as well. It's sort of a chord substitution. The jazz people can explain it to you better than I can. But it sounds nice over this chord. You can even add the A, the root of the chord, into the arpeggio by sliding into your original shape. I do A, slide up to the B, and then I've got my original shape. And I can do that each time. Here's the A, here's the A. That's a nice sounding arpeggio. Really allows you to travel over the fretboard in new ways that you might not have found before, and they're pretty easy to visualize because they're all the same. You can even do something as simple as a bend and do that in different octaves. This is again using the octave idea to expand your playing. Those are all B going up to C, a half step bend. Or add a little phrase to it. Any lick you have, you can do in different octaves. You could do a cool phrase like this. Like, there's so many different ways of using octaves to get over the fretboard. 3-note per string scales work that way as well. So I recommend learning those octaves, and suddenly the world of arpeggios will come flying open and you can enjoy them and rock and roll. All right. One of the most important parts of playing the electric guitar is bending the strings. Without that, it's a very polite instrument. You know, the first scale I learned was A minor pentatonic, like most people learn. And I played it up and down politely, like everyone does. But I remember the day when I learned to bend that string. And suddenly the whole scale came alive and the whole guitar came alive. And to make your guitar come alive, what I recommend is to search out all the places where you can bend within the keys that you use the most. And fortunately, you are probably a rock musician like I am, which means that there aren't a lot of keys you have to deal with. Rock musicians play in A, they play in E, maybe G and some other keys, but in general, we stay in A and E a lot. So today I'm going to explore the key of A and look for all the places where you can bend. For example, within the pentatonic scale, there's a good spot from the 7th up to the root. Usually you're bending up to a strong note. The root, A, is a strong note, so let's bend below it, up to it. The 5th is also a strong note. The the E notes. So we'll go from D to E. And what other ones? Maybe from the up to the third, we need to go to the ninth, which would be B to C. So we could do a lick just like that. And beyond that, you could, another good note is maybe the minor seventh. So let's go below the minor seventh and push the sixth up to that seventh, F sharp to G. Very good for blues and rock playing, you know. There's so many places where you can bend, so the trick is to find them all. Find them in different octaves. Maybe if that note sounds good there, from F sharp to G, we want to search up an octave higher. With the same note in a different position. So wherever you have a note to bend, try to find it everywhere. That way, wherever you are, you can do some cool bending, which really makes the guitar come alive. There's another one. I'm bending from the flat 5 up to the 5th. So you can even get like neck diagram paper and just write out all the places where you can bend, and also how far, because not all of the places have an equal size of bend. Like if you're going from the one we just did, that's a half step bend. And some places, like if you hit the E note, the next cool pentatonic note is G, so you have to bend up a minor third really far, so you have to be prepared for that one. But it's worth it. That sounds great. I love that one. I start making rock and roll faces when I play that note. And you should too. What other bending things? Also being aware of the tempo. You can bend very slowly. Or what I like a lot of times is to almost imitate what a whammy bar would do. For example, when you hit a whammy bar, you play a note and you just quickly lower it in pitch. So you could actually raise the note up without picking it, and then hit the note, and then drop it like a whammy bar. So that's a good way of getting some vibrato. So I think if anything, I really want to plant the love of vibrato into your ears, because if it gets in here in your ears, you're going to want to do it, and you're going to be a better guitar player, and everyone's going to want to listen to you. If you don't love vibrato, then somehow it's my job to make you love it, because it's such a wonderful, fantastic thing that'll make your guitar come alive. So please feel the love, stick it into your ears, and bend the strings and make them come alive with rock and roll, bending, and vibrato. Picking. I want to talk about the mechanics of picking, how to hold the pick how to move it, angles, that kind of stuff. I hope it will help you get the sound that you want out of your picking. When I first started playing guitar, I held it almost backwards to how I hold it now. I used to hold it with 2 fingers and my thumb, and in order to get a good angle on the string, which you need for it to go over quickly, I would sort of angle it back like that. And it sounded good, but it started to hurt my thumb because it was pushing the thumb back into my hand. So after 8 years of that, I completely turned it around and decided to hold it on the side of my first finger. And in order to make that happen, the thumb has to bend forward and the first finger has to pull back. And you can see how if my finger continues to pull back, the thumb angles more and more. So really, where this first finger is controls the angle of the thumb. And all that matters because it changes the sound of the string and that kind of cello-y, brushy kind of sound. And that's what I like. I like that kind of cello-y, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh kind of sound. If it's too parallel with the string, that disappears. You can hear it. But as I angle it, you begin to get that nice little brushy, scratchy sound. And if I have any advice for most people when it comes to picking, it has to do with the tone of the string. And if you just use your ears, the ears are just as important as your fingers, to just slightly change that angle until it really sounds good, it really sounds like a good tone. Then even when you put distortion on, it'll still sound like a cool cello. You know? Obviously I'm not picking hard, but with a lot of distortion, if you pick hard, it just gets messy. And we want this to be nice and clean and controlled. The next thing is to be able to control your accents. You know, be able to hit hard or even hit a harmonic, a pick harmonic, once in a while. To give you an example, you might want to hit where the snare hits in a rock, you know, heavy metal double bass drum beat that's going like ticka 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 ticka. And I'm trying to accent where that snare drum would be. Now the motions that make that happen are really small, and I can try to explain them, but I think the best thing I can say is to use your ears and just to move that pick back and forth a little bit using your first finger and the angle of your thumb to make sure that the sound is good. And then I'm using a little bigger motion to get that nice pick harmonic. You can try other strings. That is a lot more aggression than just the notes by themselves unaccented. That still sounds good, but I like when you can accent with the snare and go daga 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 daga. That's when your head starts moving. Now I'm just doing open strings now. Obviously you can throw in more complex things with the left hand. You know. It's all alternate picking. And I really do prefer alternate picking for faster things to any other kind. Alternate picking is just doing a downstroke and then an upstroke and continuing that in that fashion, just back and forth. Sometimes there's more efficient ways of picking, but they break up the groove of just that back and forth kind of sound. And also with alternate, I can get bigger motions. And although bigger motions aren't as efficient, they're bigger, and bigger sounds louder and more rock and better. And I like big and rock and louder. And so even for fast things like this, I like alternate picking. Let me slow that down real quick because it's a really good picking exercise if you haven't worked on a lot of this before. The key to life here is that the high E is an upstroke. and then the next string is a down. And every time you come down to hit that high E, it's going to be an up. And again, as you do this, of course you want to be able to make it faster, but also really listen to what the tone of the strings are doing. You can listen as I slightly change the angle to how the sound changes. And especially when you start adding distortion, that little, the little scratchy sound really sounds good. Also, please, don't do what a lot of beginners do, which is to just make your left hand do something that is slower than the right hand. I really want you to sync up the hands, and don't cheat and play 3 notes and pick really fast. It sort of gets the effect, but I just personally I can't go there. I really want my 2 hands to lock up and be synchronized and be dead on accurate. To me, that's metal. I know a place where dreams are born and time is never planned. It's not on any chart, you must find it in your heart. Never, never land. It may be miles beyond the moon, or right there where you stand. Just keep an open mind, and then suddenly you'll find never, never land. You'll have a treasure if you stay there, more precious far than gold. For once you have found your way there, you will never, never, never grow. And so that's my own where dreams are born and time is never planned. Just think of pleasant things and your life will fly on wings forever in